Hi, it's Sandy from Apple Cottage. How are you tonight? It's time to start considering gardening 2020. November is one of my favorite months of the year, not because I'm gardening, but I'm planning to garden. So what I like to do is review the year before. So I'm reviewing 2019 now. What was good, what was successful, what garden things didn't really work. Was the weather a factor? Hail a factor? It was a vegetable I just maybe didn't care for. It was something new I tried. But it's good to look back and see what was successful and what wasn't. It helps me when I go to plan for the next year. So it's time for me to look at 2020. I have started to get seed catalogs. I've gotten a few so far. It won't be long, and almost every day or every other day there'll be a new seed catalog in the mail. My favorite all-time seed catalog is from Baker Seeds. Their website's rareseeds.com. I have ordered from them every year for many, many, many years. I like their whole story. The photographs in their catalog are spectacular. The prices are fair, and I also like the history that they reveal in those catalogs and online. I like the idea of buying a tomato that's an heirloom that first was in a catalog in, say, 1764. They do a lot of research to find those that history of the heirloom, and I really appreciate that they do that. Now, they're not the only seed catalog I order from. I am always trying to find small seed companies, especially in the north, because I think it's important to order from them. They're, mom and pop seed companies a lot of times. They're just at their beginnings, and we need to support them. We need seed companies. We don't want Monsanto and big companies buying up all these little seed companies, and then they disappear. And a lot of those rare seeds that they may have in their catalog disappear, because a lot of times a big company will only keep something in their catalog if it sells. So I always make a point of buying seeds from all kinds of companies, and I always like to buy a few really unusual vegetable seeds. If people don't buy those, they disappear, and it's a loss for us, because no longer will you be able to find this unique tomato or that certain colored carrot, and I think it's important for us to do that. I actually have my own seed license. I could sell the seeds that I save, but I choose to buy from these small companies instead. And if they're from the north, their seasons are like my seasons, late springs, early fall, and I really want to support them. When I look back in last year's, in 2019 season, I have to look at the yields I have. What was the weather, and how did that put into a factor of the yields that I received? I really believe that I got my love of gardening from my grandma Reichert. She had a small farm, 40 acres in Nebraska. We used to go there for the summers. She had a root cellar where she stored things and all of her things she canned. But what really was interesting is that she would have all these little jars, baby food jars and little mason jars, that she saved seeds. But unlike a lot of people, on that label it would say, grew well in wet summer, grew well in dry, hot summer. So if the Farmer's Almanac, because she planted by the Farmer's Almanac and by the moon, it said it was going to be a wet summer, those were the seeds that she chose. And she was successful. She had a huge garden. And I think I really got my love of gardening from her. Now, things that I always like to do, because I used to think, oh, I will remember that. You plant a certain kind of tomato, you throw the packet out because you used all the seeds, and you have a label But by the end of the summer, that label's gone, and you really enjoyed that bean or pea or carrot, and you don't have the information anymore. So I started doing journaling. And so from the seed catalogs, I cut out photos. I write about when I planted, how it did, what the weather was like, and at the end of the season, how it performed. So I can go back and say, yeah, we really liked that type of beet. This is where I got it from. This is what it looked like, and it's easy for me to reorder. Some years you have an overabundance. Some years that crop didn't grow. It was too cold, or it got hailed out. Everything like that goes in that journal. Another thing you can do in November is take graph paper, know the size of your garden, draw it out, and then start placing where you want to plant for next year. I find this very economical. I know how many seeds I have to plant, if I need 1 packet or if I need 2 packets. It lets me arrange, and so I know how much I can get into that garden space. I have a lot of different gardens that I garden in, and so doing it all down on graph paper in November and December is really helpful to me. I just finished my plot design for the North Community Garden here in Gillette, and I'm going to do all root vegetables for the most part in that garden this year. It really has a habit of getting hailed on. It's that part of town that when the clouds come through, it really has higher percentage of hail damage than any of my other gardens that I have. And so I decided this year I'm going to do root crops, because a lot of times if it gets hailed on, those tops can regrow and the root is perfectly fine anyway. But it lets me draw out and know how many things I'll need to plant. And I like to do things in 10-foot sections. It's very easy, especially on the North Community Garden. It's not a huge plot. It's about 400 square feet. And so I can figure out things in 10-foot sections. Sometimes it's hard to imagine when you go to plant if you haven't planned anything out. But if you have it on paper and you have in your 10-foot sections, you can string it out, and you can grow a lot of things in a 10-foot section. In one 10-foot row, you can get 2 dozen ears of corn. You can get, I believe, 12 pounds of cucumbers, 5 pounds of lettuce, about 20 pounds of potatoes or more, depending on your soil, 10 pounds of carrots in just a single row, 10 foot long. Note, there's actually about 3,500 different types of carrots grown worldwide. I find that fantastic. Things that I always do, I like to order early. If you wait until January, a lot of times, when you go to order, some of that stuff is already out of stock. I found that at Baker Seeds before. So, in fact, I've already ordered from Baker Seeds, and I already received my seeds, so I'm totally excited about that. Put in a couple other orders so far for some small seed companies, and I've gotten those. But when you plant your garden, you have this abundance of vegetables at the end. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to just eat it fresh? Are you going to can it? You're going to dehydrate it? Are you going to freeze it? Did your family really like that vegetable? There's no reason to plant beans if you and your kids and your husband are not going to eat those beans. I mean, it's a very traditional thing. Oh, I have to have beans. I'm growing a garden. No, you don't. You can plant whatever you want. Then what do you do with, sometimes you're buying a packet and you have extra seeds. Now, there are things that you can store. You know, I save seeds. You know, I save seeds from that the summer's crop. I save seeds that were just, I didn't use all of them in the packet. But if you like to buy your seeds new every year and you have extra seeds, donate the rest of them to a seed library. The Campbell County Master Gardeners, I'm the president of the Master Gardeners this year, and this coming year we're going to do a project called Share Your Pack. And it's just going to ask people that when they plant, the extra things they donate to the seed library. And then people can come in and they can get those plants, those seeds for free, of course, and they can plant them. We just ask that when you get a harvest, you save some of your seeds and donate it back to the seed library. And it's a great way to try different vegetables. You know, a lot of times people are on a limited income. They can't buy all these different kinds of seeds, but they can go to a seed library, and really there are seed libraries all over the country now. And so it is a great way to share. And there are a lot of seeds that will last a long time. There was a study on tomatoes. They had tomato seeds that were 14 years old. They tried it on 300 seeds, and 74% of them still germinated, which that is a high percentage. But then on the other hand, carrots at 4 years, only 7% will germinate. And so it's interesting on the viability of different seeds. And you can look it up on the internet. There's a list of, you know, how long these seeds stay viable. When I save seeds, I like to put them in an envelope. It's not a plastic bag, an envelope, because I think that there can be air exchange through that paper, where a Ziploc bag, if there's moisture, I think the moisture can sometimes get into the bag. So I just put it in envelopes. I write on it what it is, the year, anything I want about the weather on that envelope, and then I have a drawer that's in a cool, dry place in the pantry, and that's where I keep them. But it's interesting on what your success was the year before on what you do the next year. Like this last summer, I didn't plant any beets at all, and I like beets. But I had canned so many, I had such an overabundance the year before, I thought, until I use up all of these canned beets, there's no reason for me to plant them. And so look at what your success was. What did you have an abundance of? What did your family really love? And that's a good way to plan. So in November, take some time, get some graph paper, draw out your plans, do it in pencil. Then you can look at it, then you're looking through catalogs, you decide to buy something else, you can switch that around. But it really gets you excited about the coming growing season, and it's a fun exercise to do. Think about journaling for 2020, and you will find a lot of success. And it's really interesting to go back 4 years or 5 years and see how your planting has changed, how the dynamics of your family they used to eat a lot of carrots. 5 years later, they're not really eating that many carrots. So it's interesting to keep track of that in a notebook. So I hope that you found this interesting. Things to do in November. And just look at your garden for 2020, and I hope you enjoy.